Hey everybody, I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold, here with the weekly lecture. The lecture is on meeting 1E4 with the Sicilian Najdorf. The sponsor name, just like last week and the next 2 weeks, is Matt. Thanks, Matt. Matt sponsored 4 lectures. So if I ever forget to say the sponsor name before I go to Paris, it's Matt. And he did it on different openings. Now, I'm guessing if I talk to a colleague of mine, a grandmaster, and said, I'm doing a 45-minute lecture on the Najdorf, they would be on the floor laughing because probably the Najdorf should be like a 10-part series. And there's a book on the Najdorf that I saw once that's hundreds of pages and it's on one variation. So I can't really discuss the whole Najdorf, but I will anyway. And probably most of the lecture is going to be me talking about the Najdorf, and then the minority of the lecture will be games. Usually it's the other way around, but I want to explain what the Najdorf is and how it came to be and explain what's going on in the Najdorf. So typically, I would say 95% of my audience is under 1,600. Maybe I could have said 1,400 or 1,200. But anyway, the Najdorf, if you're going to be a fan of it for either side and play it, is typically for people who are much stronger than that. So if you're rated 1,100 and you don't understand the lecture, that actually makes sense. Because Najdorf is something super grandmaster don't understand either. Okay, if you see the Wikipedia page that's on your page now, there's actually a Wikipedia for just the Najdorf variation of the Sicilian. It's a very long article because the Najdorf's complicated. And it starts with this position, which I will go over on a real chessboard. Well, it'll be a fake chessboard, but Black just played A6 on move 5. Black does in the Sicilian a lot. You should go to the Wikipedia article on the Najdorf and read it. Then you'll see how complicated it is. They talk about the different variations. Bishop G5, that was the most common move in the 60s, 70s, possibly 80s. Possibly. It's not very common now, but probably like 75% of games in the Najdorf, white played Bishop G5 50, 60, 70 years ago. And they talk about that. Okay. Then there's the English attack, which is the most common line today. That's where white plays Bishop E3, typically F3, Queen D2, and castles, which are the same moves white makes against the Sicilian dragon in the Yugoslav attack. There's the Fischer Sozin, where white plays Bishop C4. And when Fischer played Bishop C4, he typically castled kingside because Bishop's not on F1 anymore, so you can castle kingside. When grandmasters play Bishop C4 now, typically they play the Velimirovich variation and castle queenside. I didn't know F4 was called the Amsterdam variation. I knew F4 was a move. Bishop E2 is rather passive and boring. Adams' attack with H3, I assume named after Michael Adams. It's not named after Michael Adams. It's named after Weaver Adams. Weaver Adams was suspiciously bad for somebody as famous as he was. Weaver Adams, like between 1930 and 1960, was pretty famous, but he wasn't very good. So the Adams attack H3, that's actually one of our Fischer games. Okay, and white can play basically any move. It says Rook G1's the freak attack. I never heard that. Okay. Now we're going to get to the meat of the lecture, which is unusual for me because I'm a vegan. Okay, so the first game is Fischer Najdorf. It's the Najdorf, and Najdorf's black. God damn. Now, once again, the sponsor was not specific. The name of the lecture is the Najdorf Sicilian versus 1E4. If I was the sponsor and I named my lecture that, I would assume we're looking at it from black's point of view. But I didn't want to assume that. So in the lecture today, white won one game and black won two games. Because I want to look at the whole Najdorf, not just black wins or white wins. Okay, the Sicilian is E4, C5. Open Sicilian, white plays knight F3 and D4. In the Dragon and the Najdorf, and in one move order of the classical Sicilian and the Scheveningen, D6 is played. Then open Sicilian is takes, knight takes. Knight F6 attacks the E pawn, knight C3. Okay. So in this position, grandmasters play 5 moves. A6, the Najdorf, knight C6, the classical, E6, the Scheveningen, G6, the Dragon, and E5, which I have a chessable course about. And the reason the Najdorf was invented is because people thought E5 was a mistake. Many people think E5 is a mistake now, and some people don't. The problem with E5 is white plays bishop B5 check. White either blocks the bishop or trades it off. If you block the bishop, knight F5, you can see white has an initiative. By my chessable course, you can analyze this. Grandmasters in the 40s, 50s, and 60s thought bishop B5 check gave white a big advantage. With the advent of computers and some super GMs, maybe black's okay. Maybe. Okay. And Najdorf said, I have an idea. I'm going to play A6, so you can't play bishop B5 or knight B5. A6, typical Sicilian move. Then I'm going to play E5, and then everybody's happy. Occasionally, I'll play B5 early to play A6, which we're going to see in the first game. And the Najdorf was born. And in the 60s and 70s and the beginning of the 80s, most of the games went bishop G5, E6, F4, bishop E7, queen F3. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of grandmaster games that start from this position. Then black plays queen C7, knight BD7, and B5, and H6, and sometimes white plays G4 early, sometimes not. And that was a lot of games. Najdorf players decided a long time ago that was fine for black. And they were right. Super grandmasters, for the most part, don't play bishop G5 here anymore. They played it for 30, 40 years. Now they're playing the English attack, which is something else. Now, at some point in the 80s, grandmasters were getting tired of the Keres attack. Keres attack is in the Scheveningen, where black plays E6, not A6. White plays G4. the Keres attack. And grandmasters over the decades decided they liked white a lot. And they didn't want to face the Keres attack, but they wanted to play the Scheveningen. But they didn't want to face the Keres attack. So grandmasters found a tricky way around this. They played a6 instead of e6. Now you can't play g4 because it's hanging. Then white would make some move that has nothing to do with the Keres attack, like bishop e3 or bishop e2, some move. Then black would play e6 and not play the Najdorf's intended e5 and play a Scheveningen. Now g4 doesn't make a lot of sense because in the Scheveningen, white plays bishop g2 when he plays the Keres attack because the bishop's good on g2. E2 is pretty passive, actually. Okay, so there were two kinds of Najdorfs in the 60s and 70s. There were Najdorfs where white did not play bishop g5 and black played e5. Then there were Najdorfs where white played bishop g5 and black doesn't play e5 here because the knight's pinned and it gives up d5. Now black plays e6 anyway. And grandmasters decided instead of playing e5 like we did in the 50s and 60s and 70s, we could play e6 against non-bishop g5 moves and against bishop g5 and transpose into a Scheveningen without the Keres attack existing. So nowadays, there's no Keres attacks because black doesn't allow it. Nobody plays e6. Everybody plays a6, then e6. Okay. Now, if you play the Scheveningen and somebody says, I'm going to play like it's a Najdorf with bishop g5, just like a6, bishop g5, this is considered inaccurate. After a6, it was the main move for 35 years. After e6, it's considered to give white nothing because black is already threatening knight takes e4 with all kinds of discovered tricky tactics. Black hasn't played a6 losing a tempo, so black's all ready to play in the center. Okay. And when we play a6, bishop g5, which we're going to see, white plays f4, defending the bishop, so the knight can never take on e4, just loses a piece. And then queen f3 and castles, and that's a lot of games, thousands of games. Okay. Probably a lot of you are confused, like, what is all this? What are you talking about? Okay. Now, Fischer played the Adams variation, named after Weaver Adams, terrible. And that's played today, played h3. h3 wasn't played a lot when Fischer played it. And the point of h3 is twofold. Sometimes white plays bishop e3 and black can't play knight g4. And more common, white plays g4. Because that's why he played h3 to play g4. And similar to the Keres attack, but not quite. Now, as an aside, if you're a grandmaster, I'm not sure why you're watching this video. If you're a grandmaster and you're playing another grandmaster and you guys don't want to play, you want to play a grandmaster draw, there's one available. But if you're a grandmaster, you already know that. Bishop e3, knight g4, bishop c1, knight f6, and this has happened dozens of times. And some people who play the English attack, they'll play bishop g5, playing for the win. That's the right move. And some people don't like the bishop g5 variation for whatever reason, so they play f3 and then bishop e3. It's fine. Okay, so Fischer played h3. I got to go back because I repeated so many times. Okay. Now here, Najdorf made, in my opinion, a mistake. You got an opening. The opening hasn't started yet. You played A6, which is the name of the opening, the Najdorf. Your name is Najdorf. You invented the opening. And the next move, you make a mistake. Man, chess is hard. So, black should play either E5 or E6. Probably not E5, because white hasn't played bishop E2. So that means white can play bishop C4, and there's a nice open diagonal. So E6 is the most common move, and then we have hundreds of Najdorf games. Najdorf played an unusual move, trying to take Fischer out of his preparation, I guess. Played B5. Now, the problem with playing B5 early is if you play B4, attacking the knight, which is one reason to play B5, white can play knight D5. D5 is a good square for the knight. Obviously, white can't play knight D5 if black had played E6 already. Grandmasters don't like B5, but this game was played in 1962. So there weren't really engines to consult or lots of high-level chess books or internet sources. You know, you play what you felt like. Okay, so B5, not very good. And Fischer played knight D5, and he said, come take my pawn and see if you survive with white's knights in the center and lead in development. Najdorf declined and said, I'm going to develop a piece. That's why I played B5 to play bishop B7, attacking all of white's center. Then he messed up black's pawns and played C4, attacking the pawn on B5. Now, if I was black, I would want to play B4 and keep it closed, but then white can play queen A4 check and win the B pawn. I don't want white to play C takes B5, because that wins my pawn. So Najdorf took, I think is forced. Bishop takes. Now, black doesn't really have a safe place to put his king. But a pawn is a pawn, so he took the pawn on E4. And Fischer castled. Fischer said, I've castled. I have two pieces out. Your king is in the center. Rook E1's going to gain a tempo. My bishop has a million good squares. My pieces are good in the center. Isolated pawn, doubled pawn, almost no development. Good compensation for a pawn. And Najdorf said, I have a million center pawns, so I'm going to put all my pawns in the center. So he played D5. Fischer doesn't want to retreat, so he plays rook E1. He's hoping after takes, black's pawn structure looks completely ridiculous. His king looks ridiculous. So Najdorf played E5, attacking the knight. So black has a monster center, although black's king isn't very good. Fischer played queen A4 check with some tactical tricks. If you play the obvious queen D7, I can play bishop B5. Your A pawn is pinned, but you have to take my bishop. You can't lose your queen, so you have to take, and white wins material. So Najdorf played knight D7, the other move. Fischer, even though it was 7 years before I was born, followed my rules. That's good of Fischer. No wonder he was a great player. He always sacked the exchange. Black's only good piece. Okay, so Najdorf said, thank you. I'll take that exchange. And Fischer didn't play knight F5. He played knife F5. So white has tremendous position white's down a small amount of material, but black's king is never going to be safe. It's perpetual attack on the king. No matter what black does the next 10 moves, the king is no good. Okay, now in this position, if it was white's turn to move, probably white would play queen b3, threatening bishop f7 mate. Bishop f7 mate is hard to stop. Okay, so Najdorf played bishop c5, so his king had some squares. Knight g7 check. If king f8, bishop h6 looks pretty annoying. So he played king e7, knight f5 check, king e8. Now black can't castle. And then bishop e3, trading off black's only good piece. Defends the d6 square. And obviously black is lost here because white's knight is worth more than either one of black's rooks. White's bishop is perfect. Black's knight is pinned. Black's king is no good. Black's pawn structure is no good. And the d-file's nice and open to attack the black king. Queen b6. Not sure what that does. Rook d1. I'm pretty sure what that does. Rook a7, defending the knight. Rook d6. The truth hurts. Queen goes back to d8. Queen b3, threatening bishop f7 check. Queen c7, so the king can escape. King escapes. Bishop e6, and Najdorf's had enough. White king has nice safe square on h2 in case he gets checked. And black's position is frankly ridiculous. It's not easy to find a move here for black that doesn't just lose instantly. For example, if the queen wasn't here, so the rook would defend the knight, then queen b6 check would win the rook. So I'm not sure what, I'd probably resign if I was black because I wouldn't know what to do. But whites can play queen d5 and the knight's hanging and everything's hanging and so forth. So that was a crushing display from Fischer, who sacrificed material, got a lead in development, and black's king was never safe. Okay, now white doesn't have all the fun in the Najdorf, although he did that game. Okay, this is Ivanchuk Topalov, two very strong players, 2009. Okay. And frankly, this could be Topalov Ivanchuk. They both play the Najdorf, both play e4 if they want. So it could be colors reversed, but this was Ivanchuk Topalov. Okay, this is the Najdorf. In the first game, Fischer played h3. Ivanchuk played the old school move, bishop g5. f4. This is the most popular line in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Not so popular now. Okay. And in this position, the most common move used to be g4. Then white would take the knight on f6 at some point and play g5. And then f5. Very exciting. Ivanchuk played bishop d3, which is not as aggressive. Okay, then h6. And now, in this position, Ivanchuk played a typical move in the variation, but it may surprise you if you haven't seen this before. Queen h3, pinning the h-pawn to the rook. And obviously, if black castles, he's castling into an attack. Typically, in the Najdorf, when white plays bishop g5, f4, castles, Black leaves the king on e8 until it's clear that you can castle safely. Okay, black played unusual move, knight c5. Not unusual, the next move was unusual. That unleashes the bishop on the queen, puts the knight on an aggressive square. Rook he1. If you play e5 with the double attack, white just plays knight f5. So black played rook g8. That was the move I said was unusual. So Topalov decided not to castle kingside. Now Topalov's threatening the bishop because the h-pawn's not pinned anymore. So bishop h4. Topalov plays typical Najdorf move, especially in this variation, g5. Trying to get rid of the white f-pawn, so black has control of e5. Well, Ivanchuk played rook he1 because he wanted to play e5, so he played e5. Now all the pieces are hanging, and so only Ivanchuk and Topalov can play well. Even they can't play well. That's why if you're in the typical rating range of my students or people who watch my lectures on YouTube, good luck to you. Like these kinds of positions. And I avoid these positions because if I didn't, I would think forever to make sure I wasn't blundering, and then I would get in terrible time trouble, and then I would blunder. That's actually exactly what happened to Ivanchuk. Got into time trouble and made a big mistake. Okay, black took on e5. White took on g5. And then played bishop g3, attacking the e-pawn. So white's a pawn down, but black's king is stuck in the middle. Okay, knight back to d7, defending the e5 pawn. And the Ivanchuk sacrifices a piece. Makes sense. My monitor went off for a second. Queen b6, not taking the knight. The knight on e6 is actually trapped. Queen b6 might not be a move I would think of, but it's funny how the knight's trapped. So black wants to play queen takes e6, just be a piece up for nothing. Bishop c4, obviously stops queen takes e6. g4, and takes. Bishop h4. Ivanchuk's down a piece. But black's position looks miserable. Doubled, isolated pawns everywhere. King on e8. Bishop on c8 can't move. Terrible. Bishop f8. Always play bishop f8. Queen went back to d2 since the queen was attacked. Bishop d3. b5. Topalov wants to play bishop b7 and castle queenside and be up a piece. Knight e4, attacking the knight on f6. If you trade knights, walk into a skewer. So he played knight d5, rook f1, putting the rook on the open f line. Bishop b7. Black would like to castle. Problem is it's illegal. There's a bishop on h4 controlling d8. Okay, always sack the exchange. Rook takes f8. Knight takes f8 was best. That was the best way to capture back. Queen h6. Now white's down a rook, but black's king is completely trapped in the center. Knight f6 check. Discovered attack on the rook. So rook takes f6. Takes. Check. Check. Now, in this position, black is up two pieces. And if Ivanchuk was a chicken, he could perpetual check. Queen g7 check. Queen g6 check, etc. But Ivanchuk correctly decided he had more than enough compensation for the piece and played queen takes f6. Remember, black can't castle. Black's already moved his king. So black's king is really bad. Ivanchuk correctly surmised he had more than enough compensation for the piece. Rook c8, threatening checkmate. c3, b4, queen g6 check. Some analysis I saw said queen h8 check was winning. I didn't understand the analysis. White always has a perpetual if he wants. But he plays rook f1, threatening rook f8 checkmate with advantage. Queen c5, stopping checkmate. Queen takes b7, double question mark. Ivanchuk finally wins his bishop back, and the engine says, boo, that's terrible. The engine was thinking queen f7, rook d1, and then if bishop d5, possibly queen takes e6. Then my engine blew up. It gave some checks. King went to a1. Then I think rook c5 was played. Somehow white was much better. Okay. But Ivanchuk said, yay, I'm going to win my bishop back. He took the bishop. That's actually a blunder. Now, Topalov gets to attack. Queen e3 check. If the king goes to the d file, then rook d8 check. If the king goes to b1, then queen d3 check wins the rook with check. So, king c2. Check. Check. And now the move that Ivanchuk overlooked in time trouble. Really nice move. Can somebody in the live audience, which is only one person, black to play and win? An amazing move, and Topalov found it in time trouble. And Ivanchuk obviously missed this move, or he wouldn't have played queen takes bishop on b7.
I was thinking b3 to like...
b3 is correct. Bam. Now, the reason b3 is correct is if white takes with the queen, the king can't go to b3 because the queen's there. So we check, then we take the rook with check because the king can't go to b3. If you take with a pawn, it's the same thing. I've stopped king b3. So I'm taking the rook with check. I'm a rook up. Okay, so Ivanchuk played king d2. He can't move his king to the first rank because queen takes rook is check. Now the rook comes in with check. Now rook d1 check, and we win the queen and pawn endgame because we get a pass pawn on a2, which is very funny. Unless you have white, then it's less funny. Now we're threatening the queen. And if you play something like queen, well, actually, he did play queen a6, so we can look at that. If you play queen a6, he didn't play queen a6. Now, this is your chance to get 2 for 2 today. Black to play and win.
Queen f1 check.
No, then I play queen takes... Actually...
Then I play a1.
Right, then king e2.
Yeah.
You just have to reverse your polarity. You play a1 first. Oh, snap. And then you play queen f1. Okay. So white has to give perpetual, but as the game shows, white can't give perpetual. He tried, and he failed miserably. The lesson is never try. Gave up the pawn with check. Queen c4 defending the pawn. G4 threatens, or G3 threatens queen G3 check. Queen G4 check. Black's going to give checkmate. Yeah, now black plays king B1 and queens. So white resigned. Yeah, he missed B3 because he was in time trouble. That's a typical Najdorf game, and that's why I don't play either side of the Najdorf, because I would lose all my games. I can't see anything, and it's all tactics. These guys see everything, and then Ivanchuk missed something, so he lost. Truth hurts. That's the Najdorf for you. Okay, and the last Najdorf is somebody who crushes the Najdorf against somebody else who beats the Najdorf but played the Najdorf, Peter Svidler. Svidler wins a lot of games with white against the Najdorf, as does Peter Leko. This is Leko Svidler, 2 Najdorf specialists in 2007. Okay, and Leko always plays the English attack, which is the main line now. Bishop e3, f3, queen d2, castles. Black usually castles short, and both sides checkmate each other. And it's very exciting. And I've had, I think, 3 students in the last 10 years that have played the black side of this variation that I've analyzed with. Okay, so e5, that's the real Najdorf player's move. Okay, this is the main line today. Okay, and a5 is unusual. Normally they play knight bd7, g4, b5, g5. Now, black can either play b4 or knight e8. I've had students that have played both. One student played one played the other. Okay, but Svidler played a5. Svidler wants to play a4. Although that gives away the b5 square, so sometimes white takes advantage. a5 not as common as knight bd7 and b5. Queen e1. That moves the queen out of the way so that if black plays a4, white plays knight c5. That's why white played queen e1. Then later in the game, the queen can go to h4 and checkmate black. That's the hope. Okay, so queen c8, getting away from the rook. a3. Always play king b1. The problem with playing a5, a4, is sometimes you lose your a4 pawn. Truth hurts. And Svidler sacrifices a pawn by pushing in the center. Every Sicilian lover's dream. I think that's the name of a pizza. Sicilian dream lover's pizza. Okay, so they trade on d5. Trade on d5 again. Queen e2. Still equal material. A pawn is still weak. Defends the a pawn. And takes the a pawn. So white's a pawn ahead, but white doesn't have any attack against the black king. Black has an attack against the white king, and soon black is going to have the 2 bishops. One of these bishops is going to go. They can't both live forever. So he gives away this one because it's sort of trapped. So black has 2 bishops and an attack for his pawn minus. Now white's threatening bishop b6. So queen c6 attacks the knight. Now black plays f5 and bishop f6, getting his pawn majority going. And Svidler is saved by some tactics. Gets luft. Plays e4. Now that tactic is based on, did he take it? Yeah. Okay. It's based on if you take, black has a plethora of winning moves. Black can trade queens and play rook d1 mate. Or if you want to get fancy, then I could play rook d1 check first and then take your queen. No reason to do that, but just want to show you queen takes pawn's really bad. Now, black's bishops are very good. That's some good bishops. Okay, Leko played a4. Engine says that's okay. Queen d6. Again, if you take on e4, we got back rank checkmate with the queen and the rook. And in this position, Leko made the losing move. I'm going to guess time trouble. Got to guess something. It's tough to play white here because all of black's pieces are perfect. They're all lined up on the d file and on the diagonals towards the king. Knight on b6 is sort of strange. Anyway, he played c4, which is explosive, but it gives away the b4 square. There's a hole on b4, and the queen fills the hole nicely. Queen b4, threatening rook d2. You can't play the obvious move, rook d1, because I trade rooks and then queen b2 mate. Well, you can't allow rook d2, and you can't play rook d1. So you're sort of stuck. He played knight d5, blocking the rook from going to d2, sacrificing his pawn back to get rid of the bishop pair. Now we're threatening rook d2 again. Queen c2, rook d2, and Leko probably thought, I'll check. Black will play the obvious king h7. I'll check here, and I'll get perpetual check. Plays g6. I take the bishop and defend b2. Hooray! Unfortunately, instead of the obvious king h7, which doesn't work, black plays king f7, which does work. And the king hides on g6. The white queen doesn't have a lot of checks here. Queen c7, and then king g6. Now, black's threatening rook b2, which can't be stopped, queen b2, which can't be stopped, and rook takes f2. That's too many threats. So in this position, Leko resigned, Svidler won, and in my lecture, assuming that's what the sponsor wanted, black got a plus score. I want to thank our sponsor, Matt, for sponsoring all these opening lectures. If you'd like to sponsor a lecture, contact my wife, Karen. Her details are in the description, and you can decide on what subject you'd like lecture to be on, assuming it's reasonable. We didn't really cover a lot of the Najdorf because that would take about 10 lectures to discuss all the possible variations. But I showed you some of the more interesting games. A lot of Najdorfs are decisive. If you don't like boring chess and you don't like grandmaster draws, then you'll like the Najdorf. If you like a lot of blundering and a lot of checkmating and a lot of opposite side castling, then you'll like the Najdorf. The Najdorf has stood the test of time. Many world champions have played the Najdorf with both colors, including Anand, for example, Kasparov. And I could show you dozens of games that are very interesting with lots of tactics and lots of sharp play, but we just don't have the time. Anyway, thank you once again, Matt. I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time with our weekly lecture series. Bye, everybody.